we're wrapping up Halloween Mania with the Ghost and McGee's Frightmares on Main Street, which for some reason Disney decided to release this episode in May of this year rather than October of this year. Granted, it may be the fact that they wanted to have the audience keep on track with the episodes being released in chronological order, rather than doing it at a random production order, but if you ask me, other networks release the Halloween material outside of October, mainly Nickelodeon in 2012. But still, today is Halloween, with Halloween Mania wrapping up, and with this wrapping up everything, it's accurate, not because it's a good Halloween episode, but it's the fact that the criticisms center around Molly and Ollie being together. And I'm just gonna say this right now, I don't have any of those criticisms centering around this episode. But before we talk about that, let's go talk about the episode's plot. Molly, along with her friends, was setting up a haunted house for people to enjoy themselves in. And considering that she isn't the best at preparing a haunted house, this leads to Scratch doing something that would easily impress anyone, but we're gonna get to that later. This also leads to a struggle that Molly is dealing with, that his best friend is a ghost hunter, and Ollie is this close to figuring out that Molly's friend is a ghost after the previous episodes where he's getting hints involving Molly's obsession with ghosts and his relationship with Scratch. And since that Molly has been hiding that secret from Ollie after all this time, this is the episode where Ollie sees the truth, but we're gonna get to that later. With Molly's haunted house being underwhelming, Scratch invites all of his ghost friends in order to make the haunted house a success. Even though it raises suspicion from Molly herself, things get worse when Ollie gets inside the haunted house. Ollie expects that Molly is being controlled by the ghosts, since that one of the ghosts, mainly Scratch, is her best friend. And to be perfectly real with you, for anyone who is a ghost hunter, despite ghost hunters being fictional, I can instantly relate to Ollie in this scenario, because if it was a different monster, he would probably have no clue how to handle the situation. Thank the Lord that this isn't Goosebumps, well, there are so many different monsters other than ghosts. Otherwise, Ollie will probably not be in the job of being a monster hunter rather than being a ghost hunter. With Ollie's family investigating the whole neighborhood to find ghosts, they encounter the Frightmares, who are taking control of the area while causing harm towards Ollie's family, and Scratch manages to save Ollie's family before it's too late. And that's mainly the episode itself, with Ollie accepting the fact that Molly is friends with ghosts, and he's starting to grow a relationship with the ghosts, because when they hug them, they're like marshmallows, mainly what Molly describes. However, it doesn't change the fact that the Chins are still being suspicious of the ghosts since that they encountered the Frightmares, which leads to a huge turning point of Ollie's life, which is somewhat similar to Molly's life, except that he isn't 100% over the top and hyperactive when it comes to Molly. I mean, he may be optimistic like Molly, but at the same time, not the same person. The reveal involving Ollie seeing Scratch and the other ghosts was something unexpected, considering that it wasn't Molly's ideal, it was Scratch's ideal, and considering that Scratch didn't think about how Ollie will eventually see the ghosts in front of him, and the fact that there was no consequences since that Scratch is the counselor, really shows that they really wanted this season to be a continuation over the last, but with a major twist that ended up happening since that we've witnessed the finale of Season 1. With this episode taking place in Halloween, I'm pretty sure that there was no other way for Scratch to celebrate a ghost party in the human world outside of Halloween. Granted, I understand that his choice of inviting ghosts inside of a haunted house wasn't a good idea, but he was only trying to help Molly. He wasn't trying to get attention from the ghost hunters. He was mainly focusing on the customers who pay to go inside the haunted house. And believe me when I say this, the fact that we reached to a point where Scratch has total control of everything since that he's the counselor, all the while he's dealing with a situation involving Molly falling in love with Ollie. It really shows that he has a lot going on when it comes to his motivations in comparison to how he was in the first season. And with Molly trying to take control of the situation due to her being in such a position while Ollie is figuring out everything while his family are catching on, which shows that she was in a lot more predictable situation considering that her crush towards Ollie has grew stronger, and since I can't delay this any longer, I'm just gonna say this right now. I don't find this criticism from fans involving Ollie and Molly being together a problem. Unlike when people discuss the criticisms towards romances that are way too cliched, like Twilight and Flash Century from Across the Girls, among others when it comes to love at first sight. I understand where people are coming from, I understand that, but the thing is, this isn't as bad as I thought, considering that the execution that they did centers around Scratch himself, since that he is friends with Molly, and Molly doesn't want to lose his best friend no matter what, especially since that she has a crush towards Ollie. So, in all honesty, if we had this scenario of a character having love at first sight towards another character, which only leads to them being in a predicament while it's somewhat obvious where the criticism is coming from, it doesn't change the fact that they include this inclusion involving Scratch. Because if they didn't include Scratch into all this, then it wouldn't even work, and it would probably make Molly really shallow in comparison to Libby, who, even though that she isn't shallow, was technically shallow since the first time she met Molly at school, mainly from the first season. And if you ask me, seeing Ollie being in this position where he can't be able to think of what is really going on, and with this being the first time he experienced ghosts being friendly, I can guarantee you that if he appeared in the first season, he will probably have poor development, since that he will probably be a ghost hunter, and with Molly having a crush on him, would probably still happen, but at the same time, it wouldn't have this type of execution, since that they took the route of having Ollie and his family appear in this season rather than the last. And whenever I see Ollie in this episode, after the development that he got in previous episodes, regardless if you found it predictable, it doesn't change the fact that you will probably be in his position whether if you're a ghost hunter or not, since that he can't be able to think clearly, since that he still is in a friendly relationship with Molly, and he's just trying a little harder to be nicer, but at the same time just trying to do what's best for not only for himself, but mainly the people around Brainton, even though it may not do anything good for his relationship with Molly. But still, you can't expect me to believe that you were never in Ollie's position when it comes to him being suspicious, while also finding it off to have a person like Molly being friends with a ghost. Like, we all know ghosts don't exist completely in the real world, but at the same time, if this was being in a much more serious situation with Ghost being a criminal, along with the fact that he does a lot more terrible things towards a person like Molly, you pretty much know where I'm going with this. But since that this is in a much more smaller scale, mainly with Ghost being a major factor in the show, with Molly being hyperactive and optimistic and seeing things that aren't as bad as what people think, you can really tell that this isn't that bad when it comes to Ollie's suspicions. And since that he warms up towards the ghosts, mainly Scratch, believe me, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't be in this position if you're not like Molly, but at the same time, you would still be friends with the ghosts regardless. Even if they're mostly something that you wouldn't expect them to do, but the ghosts are nowhere near as bad as the criminals in real life. It's just mainly a fact of what this show is trying to accomplish, since that it's introducing characters like Ollie. And I'm just gonna say this right now, I'm not with the criticisms involving Molly and Ollie, but at the same time, I'm not a shipper involving Molly and Ollie. Granted, it may grow on me over time, but at the same time, I just think that this shipping is pretty much okay for what it is, and it doesn't really take up a lot involving the Ghost and Molly and McGee. Because when I see criticisms involving Star versus the Forces of Evil when it comes to the Marco and Star shipping, I can totally understand where they're coming from. But at the same time, I haven't been binge watching that show since I've given up on that show, despite me doing a Halloween episode review of it since I watched that during my binge watch. My point is that I just don't find this as a terrible way for a show to go downhill, but at the same time, I'm just not into the shipping, and it may grow on me once I watch more episodes, since that there may be a good chance for me to get into this shipping with more development between the two. So yeah, I found this episode, Frightmares on Main Street, a good episode. And with the Ghost and Molly and McGee being 2 years old, I can safe to say that its identity is improving a lot more in the same lengths as Amphibia and the Owl House. Granted, Harley's on it is still affirming its identity of its own, which I appreciate the admiration that it's trying to do. But considering that the Ghost and Molly and McGee is doing well, since that it was airing around the time where Amphibia and the Owl House were coming to an end, I'm safe to say that this show is doing a lot more in order to save animation when it comes to Disney Channel. Not other networks when it comes to animation, but mainly Disney Channel, which I understand it may be far-fetched, but believe me when I say this. There's at least some form of entertainment in the animation industry, and yes, I understand that there are other animated shows that I'm missing out on, including movies, but believe me when I say this, it's still not enough, considering that the cartoon industry isn't doing well right now, since that it's not getting the respect as it deserves. Granted, Disney may have won the Owl House way too much, but in comparison to Warner Bros. Discovery, they did a lot more worse, let me tell you. Anyway, I'm giving this episode a 7.75 out of 10, and that wraps up Halloween Mania. Have yourself a happy Halloween.